The late 19th century was an age of marvels. The Gilded Age brought towering skyscrapers, glittering fortunes, and incredible industrial power. But beneath the golden surface, the nation was rotting. Corrupt politicians controlled the cities, giant monopolies crushed competition, and in the factories and slums, millions of workers and immigrants lived in desperate, dangerous conditions. America was rich and powerful, but was it just? From the ashes of this greed and corruption, a new movement was born. It was a time of reform, of righteous anger, and of a powerful belief that ordinary people could fix a broken system. They called themselves the Progressives, and they were about to declare war on injustice. This is the story of the Muckrakers, the Reformers, and the presidents who tried to clean up a nation. If you want to progressively improve your knowledge of history, you can start by ratifying your subscription to this channel. Just click that button. It's your initiative. Now, let's get to work. The first shots of the Progressive Revolution were fired not with guns, but with ink. They were fired by a new breed of investigative journalists, President Theodore Roosevelt nicknamed the Muckrakers. They exposed the nation's hidden filth to a horrified public. In his magazine, McClure's, Lincoln Steffens exposed the corrupt political machines that ran America's cities in his series, The Shame of the Cities. He showed how bosses bought votes and stole millions from the public. Ida Tarbell, one of the few prominent female journalists of her day, took on the biggest, most powerful monopoly of them all, John D. Rockefeller's Standard Oil Company. Her meticulously researched expose, The History of the Standard Oil Company, revealed the ruthless, predatory tactics Rockefeller used to crush his competition. But perhaps the most famous muckraker was Upton Sinclair. His 1906 novel, The Jungle, was meant to expose the horrific exploitation of immigrant workers in Chicago's meatpacking plants. But what shocked the public most was his graphic descriptions of the filthy, unsanitary conditions in the plants themselves.
The meat would be shoveled into carts, and the man who did the shoveling would not trouble to lift out a rat even when he saw one. There were things that went into the sausage, in comparison with which a poisoned rat was a tidbit.
The public was sickened. Sinclair famously said, "I aimed at the public's heart, and by accident, I hit it in the stomach." The outrage led directly to new laws to protect the nation's food supply. While the muckrakers exposed the problems, a generation of reformers took direct action. Many were inspired by the social gospel, a religious movement that argued Christians had a moral duty to help solve society's problems, like poverty and inequality. The most famous of these reformers was Jane Addams. In 1889, she co-founded Hull House in a poor immigrant neighborhood in Chicago. It was a settlement house, a community center that provided services the government did not. Hull House offered daycare for working mothers, classes in English and civics for new immigrants, a library, a gym, and a place for the community to gather. It became a model for hundreds of other settlement houses across the country.
Action is indeed the sole medium of expression for ethics.
Progressives believed that to cure the nation's ills, you had to give more power to the people. They championed a series of reforms to make the political system more democratic and break the power of party bosses. They introduced the initiative, which allowed voters to propose laws directly. The referendum allowed voters to approve or reject laws passed by the legislature. And the recall allowed voters to remove a corrupt or incompetent official from office before their term was up. Their biggest victory at the federal level was the 17th Amendment, ratified in 1913. Before this, U.S. senators were chosen by state legislatures, which were often controlled by party bosses and corporate interests. The 17th Amendment allowed for the direct election of senators by the people, making the Senate far more responsive to the public. The progressive spirit reached the White House with Theodore Roosevelt. He believed the president should be a, quote, steward of the people, and promised every American a, quote, square deal. Roosevelt became known as the trust buster. He used the Sherman Antitrust Act to break up giant monopolies that he believed were harmful to the public interest, taking on powerful Wall Street titans like J.P. Morgan. He was also a passionate conservationist. Alarmed by the destruction of America's natural resources, he set aside millions of acres of land for national forests, parks, and wildlife refuges, preserving the nation's natural heritage for future generations.
We have fallen heirs to the most glorious heritage a people ever received. And each one must do his part if we wish to show that the nation is worthy of its good fortune.
The progressive agenda continued after Roosevelt. The 16th Amendment was ratified, creating a federal income tax to provide a stable source of revenue for a more active government. The 18th Amendment banned the manufacture and sale of alcohol, a major goal of reformers in the temperance movement. And most importantly, after a long and bitter struggle, the 19th Amendment was finally passed. The 19th Amendment, granting women the right to vote, was the culmination of a struggle that had lasted for over 70 years. For decades, pioneers like Susan B. Anthony had campaigned tirelessly for suffrage. By the 1910s, a new generation of more radical suffragists, led by Alice Paul, used tactics like protests, parades, and hunger strikes to pressure President Wilson and Congress. Their courage and perseverance finally led to victory in 1920. But for all its successes, the progressive era had a massive, tragic blind spot: race. For African Americans, this was an era of deepening segregation, disenfranchisement, and horrific racial violence. Brave activists fought back against the tide of injustice. Ida B. Wells, a journalist and muckraker in her own right, led a fearless anti-lynching crusade, using her writing to expose the horrific reality of racial terror.
The way to right wrongs is to turn the light of truth upon them.
And the brilliant scholar W.E.B. Du Bois challenged the accommodationist approach of Booker T. Washington. Du Bois demanded immediate and full equality for African Americans. In 1909, he helped found the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP, which would lead the legal fight for civil rights for decades to come. The progressive era fundamentally changed the United States. It expanded democracy, reined in the worst excesses of corporate power, and established the principle that the government has a responsibility to protect its citizens from harm. The America of 1920 was a safer, more democratic, and more just nation than the America of 1890. But its work was incomplete. The failure to address racial injustice would leave a deep wound in the nation's soul. And as the trauma of World War I faded, Americans would grow tired of reform and sacrifice, ready to embrace a new era of excitement, prosperity, and cultural upheaval. Next time, the war is over, the reforms are past, and America is ready to have some fun. We're diving headfirst into the Jazz Age, the age of flappers, bootleggers, and boom times, the Roaring Twenties. Thanks for watching. If you believe in the power of the people, then use your power to click that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Until next time, stay curious.